And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese. China. Russian. Russia. Italian. Italy. German. Germany. Swedish. Sweden. Korean. Korea. Egyptian. Egypt. Nigerian. Nigeria. Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit, like God's property is hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target, 'cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the
This gentleman right here. Huh? What happened? No, this gentleman right here with the camera in his hand. Wave a hand. Pastor.
James Wesley Carr.
Yeah, James Wesley Carr. No. What's your name?
Oh, Kelly Richardson.
Kelly Richardson.
Pastor Kelly Richardson.
He is a great-great-grand-nephew?
Yeah.
Nephew of one of our first pastors. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's his uncle right here in the corner of the actual stained glass window here to your left.
You got the eyes.
He looked just like him. Got the same eyes. Anyway, come on, guys. Come on.
That's funny. Yeah.
Stand up here looking like...
This is First African Baptist Church, the oldest black church in North America. The building, built by slaves. The gentleman that laid the first brick laid the last. The balcony hold pews that actually were built by slaves. They have the oldest information in this building. That information is written in cursive Hebrew writing.
Look on the outside edge of the pews. Look on the outside edge of the pews where you are. You see the different markings alongside the edge of the pews? They represent the different tribes that made up our congregation back then and spoke over 6 different languages among themselves. These were small tribes enslaved by larger tribes and sold to Europeans as they came along the African coast. One of the major languages they spoke back then was that of Aramaic and also too of Hebrew, which means the writings read from bottom to top. Assalamu alaikum. Which means, peace be unto you. It's not a Muslim term. It's actually the same greeting which Christ gave into the disciples when he met them in that region. Most countries in that region read from right to left. Here in America, we read from left to right. That's why the pastors in the St. Glass window up front here are going in numbers 2 through 7 from the right-hand side over to the left, to the left, to the left.
I'm so glad you're here because you can bring great clarity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered because they went west?
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands.
And you're one of them. I know that.
I'm one of them.
I know that.
Because, you know, a lot of folk don't know that those roots are there. One of the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica, they were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over the Caribbean, South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
Wow.
And DNA testing is a factor in all this now.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israel, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said,
I know. We don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? Do you want to...
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? That is the question I have for you.
Thank you. I'll answer that question.
Go ahead, I will help you.
After the demise of Solomon, we now have the northern and southern kingdom of Israel.
Yes.
So when we talk about Jews, Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews. They were Israelites. Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews. They were Israelites. Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews. They were Israelites. So when we talk about Jews, Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews. They were Israelites.
Well, it's depending.
So minority cannot swallow the majority. We are here. We are the majority down here. So you are minority, and we are older than you.
Now I can't figure it out. If y'all are the chosen ones, shouldn't y'all be obeying better than me? I mean, I even try to keep the 4th commandment. Try to keep the Sabbath day holy. I've spent many of hours trying to figure out which is the right Sabbath day, because we know that old Catholic Church, something a little fishy about them, don't we? With that white Jesus. I mean, here's a white guy telling you black people that your Messiah is not a long-haired white European guy. Your Messiah is Hebrew, my darker-skinned brothers and sisters. When are you guys going to wake up and become kings and queens?
The Jews are black, and their originally homeland would come from Ethiopia, and that was over 12,000 years. That's where they sprang from, and that's another thing. Here's the continent of Africa, but they say that's Middle East. That's part of Africa, but they changed the name.
Yes.
To just throw you off, okay?
KJ, you gotta come here, all right? I gotta show you.
I gotta leave soon, man.
I know you have
I gotta
to
get
leave.
out of
Listen
here.
to me. Okay, so I'm watching TV like a year ago, all right? I'm watching one of those History Channel shows, trying to learn. And I stumbled. You ever hear African Jews?
African Jews?
Yeah. No, right? No.
Looking for everybody to be a Jew.
Check this out. I don't know, all right? So these are black Jews, all right? They're stranded in the middle of Ethiopia.
Okay, I was just thinking about this morning. I grew up Baptist. I went to Vacation Bible School. I've read the Bible. I don't know if I'm interpreting it correctly, but if we are made in God's image, right, and the first modern humans originated in Africa, if God has a human form, God is black. God is black.
I was a Christian missionary for years, but there came a time in my life when I realized that what I was taught about the Bible was a lie. In my confusion, I cried out for help. I met an Israelite who introduced me to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, who is described in the Bible as having hair white as wool and eyes red as fire. Yes, the God in the Bible is black.
Today, it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel. Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
I was told welcome home because I'm Jewish. Every single person who's Jewish that steps off the plane, especially for their first time in Israel, is told welcome home. Let's just sit with that for a second. This right here, this is my actual ancestry. I am 88% Ashkenazi Jewish, and none of my ancestors are from the Middle East.
Does having Jewish DNA determine your Jewish status? Great question. The answer is your Judaism is determined by your mother. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish according to traditional Judaism. Now, you could have a very high count of Jewish DNA, and that's awesome. That means you're connected to the Jewish people, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're Jewish. Don't forget, there are people that convert to Judaism and they have zero DNA and they're 100% Jewish.
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't matter.
Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
Want to say peace and blessings to everyone. Let me adjust this camera. And then I want to apologize to you guys. I know that I'm finding out that the sound is going in and out. That's YouTube. That's not anything technical difficulties on my end. What they're doing now, and this tells you that the message is getting out there, because some of the key videos that you're hearing or not hearing, they are purposely muting that without my knowledge. I had no clue that they're muting some of the clips. So that's their way of trying to suppress this truth. So that tells you that we have people that are trolling from the other communities. The name stealers. I'm just going to call it that. The name stealers. They are, doing everything that they can to manipulate the output of what we're doing here by having some of the videos, as some of you guys are experiencing, having some of the videos to, in a nutshell, be muted out without my knowledge. So my apologies. And if you could post in the comment section, what video was muted out? Can you guys let me know what video was playing that was muted out? If you could type that in the comment section real quick. I'm just curious, because I know one of the videos that they've been trying to mute out is the one that I share with Professor Aaron L. Hake, the geneticist, who actually exposed the deception with the DNA. Oh, Jesus was black. Okay, I got you. All right, so I'm gonna make a note of that, and I'm going to make sure I'm making note of those videos that they are muting out. But yeah, that's all YouTube. Let me back this camera up. For some reason, this camera is. Let me back it up some. All right, let me back this up here. All right, don't like my camera to be so close. All right, I've been doing a lot of home improvements here. All right, so let me back this up here. So I've been doing a lot of home improvements, doing some projects around the house. Thank the Most High for blessing my family to have this house as long as we've had it, and had it built from the ground. So now me and the missus, we're doing some upgrades around the house. So let me see here. Let me try playing it again. You guys said it's the Jesus is Black video. Let me see here. Let me try that one. Which one is the Jesus is Black? Because I have a few of them. Is that the one with the Caucasian lady saying that Let's see here. Which one was that? I think I played this one. Let's try that real quick again. Let me look at the comment section to make sure. Let's see here. Oh, the white guy. All right, it's the white guy. The one that said Kanye West was correct. Go figure. I think it was this one right here. Let's see.
The entire Bible is about black people. Not only was Jesus black, but every character in the Bible seems to be black too. Yeah, Zephaniah and Jeremiah and Jebediah, those all aren't white people names, okay? And Jesus wasn't some tan, partially melanated Middle Eastern person either. I'm talking straight up black dude.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Even in the book of Revelation, when you get the vision of Daniel, he's describing someone with feet like burnt brass and white woolly hair, and we've got the deep running water voice with the red eyes, and you guys, he's black. The Jewish people are black people. Like Kanye was right.
All right, so that's no coincidence, and I just encourage you and focus to see. Just kind of, you may want to reboot your browser because it's coming up clear on my end. But even then, like even some of the videos that you may not hear the clips, it's playing on my end, right? So I can't tell if the video is not playing. So my apologies, but that is nothing but YouTube. That's all YouTube. That's all this platform. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys for the love and support. We've been really, this channel has had a lot of momentum. We've been growing and growing and growing in spite of the suppression on this channel. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and click on that notification. And if you are subscribed to the channel, double check to make sure that you are still subscribed, because another thing that YouTube has been doing, they've been mysteriously unsubscribing our followers, right? And I've gotten emails and I've seen posts made about how they have to keep subscribing to the channel, right? And that they're not getting any of the notifications. All right. So with that being said, family, we know that it comes with the territory. You know, anything but the Negroes, right? Anyone and anything but our community can speak this truth. Anyone can insult our community. Anyone can say whatever they want to say about our community. And guess what? Nothing happens. You know, they can literally say the same things we say, but they could take it several steps further. Nothing happens to them. So anything but the Negro, anything but our community. So with that being said, family, we're going to have a little fun tonight with this lesson here. You know how we do. We're going to give some historical information. Some of this information you guys have already been introduced to if you've been following the channel for some time. But I like to give imagery, and I like to just kind of reinforce certain teachings. So I want you guys to make sure that you, again, take notes of the sources that I'm going to use. That's right. The topic, as you see on your screen, the topic for tonight, Shabbat night, the topic for tonight is Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare. And if we take it a step further, he knew that the original Israelites were
Strong's G 3526. Niger. Strong's G 3526. Niger.
All right. So that is our topic for tonight. You know, they know that we're the people of the book. They know that we are the people of the book family. And this is why they're doing, when I say they, you know, these other communities, these religious systems, whether it's Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, they know that we are the people in the book. That's why these guys are even in cahoots with each other. You know, we see Christianity, Judaism, Islam. We see we've witnessed these guys come together to come at our community, including the conscious community. They are all in cahoots with one another. They are that crafty counsel. Unfortunately, as that old saying goes, not all skin folks are kin folks, right? So we have to keep that mindset when it comes to many of our brothers and sisters. So they know the truth about us, just like Shakespeare knew the truth, just like other people, his contemporaries, they know the truth about who we are. And I'm going to this lesson here. I want to continue to add to it because I got other sources that I'm confirming to add to that, to add to this lesson as well, right? But they know who we are. They know that we are the people of the book. This is why they're doing so much to try to discourage us. This is why, if you notice, how many of you guys witnessed this thus? The DNA information continuously change, right? They constantly changing it and making adjustments so that way they can include themselves to make it, to try to solidify themselves as being the original people. But guess what? Newsflash, family. Again, as I pointed out about the geneticist, Professor Aaron Elhike, right? This is what he says. Let's hear what he says real quick. This is what he says about the Ashkenazi Jewish community.
When you see Ashkenazi Jews sharing high similarity to Romanians and Hungarians, this is because both of these populations were offshoots of the Khazars. They were both founded by these members of the Caucasus who ruled this area of north of the Black Sea, where we have South Russia nowadays, between the 7th and 13th centuries. Very powerful empire. They converted to Judaism in the 8th century, and they sent offshoots to Eastern Europe. And we still, some Ashkenazi Jews are mapped to this region of Ukraine. They're not all mapped to Ashkenaz. Most of them are, but some of them are mapped to Ukraine, and we can see very nicely some kind of migration route using GPS.
And see, family, this is why now we're hearing a lot of stuff like this guy right here. You know, you probably notice you're hearing more and more of like this Jewish rabbi right here explaining what it means to be a Jew. Listen again. I'll play it one more time.
Does having Jewish DNA determine your Jewish status? Great question. The answer is your Judaism is determined by your mother. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish according to traditional Judaism. Now, you could have a very high count of Jewish DNA, and that's awesome. That means you're connected to the Jewish people, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're Jewish. Don't forget, there are people that convert to Judaism and they have zero DNA and they're 100% Jewish.
Come on, family. Come on, family. So what he just said confirms what we already know. That being a Jew, as how they describe it, is through a religion. It has nothing to do with being connected to the ancient people of the book. I have other clips with other rabbis saying the same thing. So for this person right here, this Jewish person right here, who DNA results surprised him when he saw that his DNA does not connect to Northeast Africa, to what they call the Middle East today, to what they refer to as the Levant of today. His DNA did not track to there, but he's still classified as being a Jew, so to speak. Right? Let me play it one more time. You guys remember this?
I was told welcome home because I'm Jewish. Every single person who's Jewish that steps off the plane, especially for their first time in Israel, is told welcome home. Let's just sit with that for a second. This right here, this is my actual ancestry. I am 88% Ashkenazi Jewish, and none of my ancestors are from the Middle East.
So when it comes to us, when it comes to us, right? And this is the thing, right? Because I want to make it clear. I know we have different tribes that have been, that we have mentioned, for us the Limba, the Igbo. I mentioned the Bambara. I mentioned the Mavumbas. Guess what? There's a number of tribes that are blood descendants of Israel, right? So the unfortunate thing is the way things are going today. They're trying to keep numbers small so that way they can control the narrative. We know that we are the people of the book, and they know it. Everyone knows this. That's why you're seeing more and more testimonies come out. Right now, we're the ones that are being ridiculed. But we're going to go into this source here because I don't want to prolong the time here. I know some of you guys, and I appreciate you guys for being part of the discussion with me and my cousin on his channel, Benaya Israel. Really appreciate you guys for being on that part of that discussion. So I know we have some that are transitioning over to here from there. So I really appreciate you guys for the love and support. And if my cousin Benaya is in the building, I dropped the link inside the comment section. So if you want to jump on, feel free to jump on at any time. But let's deal with this, family. Shakespeare, right? He know, just like his contemporaries and others, they know that the true ancient Israelites and even the Israelites of their time, they were
Strong's G 3526. Niger. Strong's G 3526. Niger.
So they know this. They know this without a shadow of a doubt, right? But the key is manipulation. Anyway, manipulation. So let's go ahead and get into it, family. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, here we go. Let's see here. All right. So what did Shakespeare, his contemporaries, and historians of their time, what do they say about the ancient Israelites? What do they say about the appearance of the Israelites? Did they have the same questions that we see are being tossed about today? Did they have the same question? Did they deal with the same set of challenges that we are dealing with today? Right? How did they describe the ancient Israelites? What did they say about the Israelites of their time? Remember, when we deal with Shakespeare, he lived in England, right? So when we deal with England, when we deal with the London area, guess what? We are going to have to prove we are going to have to prove who's who, what they said about the Israelites of their time. Now, you guys already know I don't like to use that word Jew, and many of us don't like using that word because that word is a word of confusion. And if you guys are not familiar with that, I have in the foundational playlist, there is a lesson there that deals with words of confusion. There's a series that deal with the word Jew, Gentile, right? And I break those words down. So I encourage you guys to watch that lesson. I also did words of confusion dealing with the word church and also Messiah, deliverer, redeemer. So there's some great foundational lessons for those that are, really trying to get up to speed and, with what's going on and everything with this truth. I want to say shout outs to my brother, Daryl Miller, Pastor Daryl Miller. He is in the building and family. He just got his YouTube channel up and going. And feel free to drop the link in the comment section, and we will definitely, show some love to your channel, get you to that 1,000 subscribers as soon as ASAP. So that way it unlocks other things that you can do within the YouTube channel. So we really appreciate you and all that you do. And thank you for letting me know that the channel is up. He just created it. Hallelujah. All right. So with that being said, how did they describe the Israelites of that time? What were some of the things that they were, what was the discussions? Did they, the racism that we see today, was it still, did they still deal with this back then? And I'm going to say, yeah, it was, a lot of the racial components were added to the whole narrative by way of the church and Judaism, the religions. They know we the people of the book. I'm going to say that again. How did they describe them? And I'm going to keep saying this thing until you guys start saying it to others. There is something special about you, Judah. There is something special about you, Israel. Can't no one sing like us? Can't no one worship like us? The Most High did not speak to no other nation but Israel. That's in Amos chapter 3, starting at, I believe, verse 2 is where it says, either verse 1 or verse 2. You will see Amos chapter 3 makes it clear. And also the 147th book of Psalms, when you go down to about the verse 19, you'll see the same thing, 2 or 3 witnesses. So I gave you at least two witnesses to make it clear. Guess what? Can nobody sing like us? Can nobody teach like us? Can't nobody go into the word like we can? Why? Because the Most High did not speak to no other nation but our ancestors. And this is why we can teach the way that we teach. This is why we can sing the way that we sing. Guess what? We are in this perpetual captivities. And guess what? Can't no one praise the Most High like us, because none of them dealt with the captivities that we've dealt with. We're still dealing with captivities today. We're still the only people in this country and other countries that have to go through what we go through. Guess what? We're the only ones in this country that has to have laws passed about whether I'm giving us permission to wear our hair in a natural manner. Come on, you got news stories about high school students graduating and they cut the young guy's hair. You got wrestling matches, they cutting the young guy's hair because it's not conducive or falling within their school regulations and all this stuff. There's something special about you. Name one community that are going through what we're going through, and I can tell you that not one of them. And we can tell by way of the plagues. The plagues tells you exactly who's who and makes a separation and proves that we are the people of the book and no other nation is the people of the book, because we're the ones that's dealing with the perpetual slavery, the perpetual captivities, the perpetual plagues of not having anything, having strangers among us, rising up among us, and guess what? Owning up everything, owning the gas station, owning the projects. We don't even own the projects. Come on, every other nation. And guess what? Even those hair products, guess who own that? Guess who's the distributors of that? The Koreans. 95% of the distribution comes through them. Anything but the Negroes. We don't own nothing. Only thing that we have can come close to ownership about is a hair salon, a barbershop, right? A daycare. Those are the only things. But what do we really own? Come on, family. But I can tell you that the people that say that they are the people of the book that's trying to claim, right? I can guarantee you how much influence they have. They getting all kinds of money from this government, right? Different groups of name stealers. They're getting all kinds of resources from this government and other governments. Anyway, let me get into it, family. Let me get into it. So how did they describe them? How did they describe the Israelites of their time? Come on, family. How did they describe the Israelites of their time? Well, I'm glad you guys asked that question because we're going to answer it, right? What caused the shift? We're going to answer that question. So let's start with this source here, right? And matter of fact, let me make sure that it's in the proper order before I do that. Because sometimes I'll give a source. All right, bear with me 1 second, family. I may have to move this around. Let me make sure I'm not giving a duplicate. All right, let me see here. Bear with me 1 second, family. I want to make sure I'm not giving a duplicate slide here. All right, we're good. We're good. I was just double checking. Okay. Let's go to the source here, family. Atlas, Geographus, or Complete System of Geography, Ancient and Modern for Africa, Volume 4, page 38. Let's go here. And family, this will give you an idea of what we go through as a people, right? Because notice some of the things that you're going to see here. The present Christians in Africa are partly strangers and partly natives, some of them slaves to the Turks and barbarians, and others free. Some of the Jews who inhabit both sides of the, I know what this word here is, not Niger, it's actually nigger or nigger. That's the proper pronunciation of it. This is the proper pronunciation of it.
Strong's G 3526. Niger.
That's the proper pronunciation of it. So some of the Jews who inhabited both sides of the
Strong's G 3526. Niger.
derived themselves from Abraham. Wait a minute. So I hope you guys unpack what's happening here. The present Christians in Africa are partly strangers and partly natives. Some of them slaves to the Turks. This is referring to our dark melanated ancestors. This is not dealing with any of those Roman Catholics. This is not dealing with the Christians that we know of today. This is not dealing with Europeans, right? So Turks, barbarians, that's how they name label some of the African countries as being barbarians, unfortunately, and others free. Some of the Jews who inhabited both sides of, as I pointed out, here's that word again, who occupied both sides of the
Strong's G 3526. Niger.
Right? Derived themselves from Abraham. So this is letting you know that they know who the people are. They know who they are targeting here. Notice what it goes on to say. Others fled hither from Aphia when Vespian, excuse me if I butcher this name here because I'm dealing with Old English. So destroyed Jerusalem, or from Judea when was wasted by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians. Some were banished from Italy in 1342, from Spain in 1462, from the Low Countries in 1350s, from France in 1403, and from England in 1422. And these are some key areas because I'm going to prove, especially when we deal with England and some of these other territories, you got Spain here, I'm going to prove that there were dark-skinned, dark melanated Negroes, Israelites, right? Even though they used it to, we hear the term Jew, but hey, family, bear with me, right? Just for the sake of the presentation. So these all differ in habit and are divided into several wealthy and numerous tribes, but have no dominion and are despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks that they are not admitted to be Mohammedans unless first baptized. So this is saying our ancestors that they know are Israelites, even though you see the word Jews, guess what, are being hated. No, let's go back here. This is confirming the consequences of Deuteronomy 28. It says here, again, it says, are divided into several wealthy and numerous tribes, but have no dominion, are despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks that they are not admitted to be Mohammedans unless first baptized. In other words, go through their conversion process and then made use of only to receive their customs and gather in their taxes. So again, some were banished. These are Negroes. This is Negro Israelites, even though they used the term Jew, but these are Negro Israelites. Some were banished from Italy in 1342, from Spain in 1462, from the Low Countries in 1350, and from France in 1403, and of course, England from 1422. So are there any proof Negro Israelites were in Spain and Portugal, right? Because again, let's go back to the source here. It gave us some territories here, banished from Italy, banished from Spain. This is still when we start dealing with the Iberian Peninsula. This is the same territory. Banished from Italy, banished from Spain, the Low Countries, from France, and from England, right? So are there any proof Negro Israelites were in Spain and Portugal? Well, I'm glad you guys asked that question. So this is the memoirs of the Secret Service of John Mackey, Esquire, right? He's a lawyer. During the reigns of King William, Queen Anne, and King George. And this is just giving you some additional information on this. But the key here, and some of you guys probably remember this, but the key here is when we look at this this public official here, right? This is the thing I want you to make sure you understand. Daniel Earl, right? It says of Nottingham, Secretary of State. So he's in a high position, Secretary of State, right? So let's see what they say about him on the next page. And this is key. In his habit, actually, we'll go ahead. In his habit and manners, very formal, it says tall, thin, very black man, like who? A Spaniard or Jew. So this is making it clear that the Israelites were dark melanated people looking like you and I. Says very black man. Didn't say that he just had a certain shade. It says he was a very dark black man. Now we know when we start dealing with the institutional race, you guys already know. But for the sake of presentation, I'm using these terms because they're in the sources. So again, family, you guys know how that roll. All right. So here it's saying that he is what? Didn't just say a black man. It said he's a very black man. In other words, he's very dark, like a Spaniard or as you see here, Jew. Let me zoom that in so you can see this. Let me zoom this in. All right, Spaniard or Jew. All right, about 50 years old. So this is a government official who is the Secretary of State. Let's go here. Right, the Jews of Spain and Portugal. I got the sources, but I'm not pulling it all up. And I'm just, for those that may be joining this for the first time, give me some sources to prove what I just pointed out. The Jews of Spain and Portugal, the Inquisition. All right, and notice what it says here. The circumstances induced King John to hasten their departure from Portugal. Whose departure from Portugal? We're dealing with Negroes here. We're dealing with dark as that reference that I just read to you, very black people, right? Very black people, right? And to be more specific, Israelites, even though here you see the word Jew. So the circumstances induced by King John to hasten their departure from Portugal, for which purpose ships were duly provided according to the agreement. But such was the temper of the captains and sailors that they subjected the Jews to the hardest possible conditions. See, this is why you don't hear any from the name stealers, so to speak. You don't hear them saying that they were in any kind of captivity, especially during this time, because they can't, because they know if they try to pull up these sources, guess what? We can prove it just with these sources that we're dealing with dark, very dark people, Negroes. These are Israelites. These are our ancestors here. All right. So it says here, they subjected the Jews to the hardest possible conditions. They plundered them of their goods and valuables, even to their very clothes, and landed them naked and bare of everything on bare points of the African coast. Come on, family. Who are the people we dealing with here? Leaving them to die of starvation or to be sold into slavery to the Moors. This is dealing with our ancestors, family. This is how we got over to Sao Tome, which is an island. If I have enough time, I'll put that map here so you can get a visual of Sao Tome, which is also referred to as St. Thomas, which is just south of what is called the Gold Coast, not St. Thomas that's in the Caribbean. All right, but the St. Thomas or Sao Tome that is just south of the slave of the Gold Coast, the very territory that King Solomon had visited. That's right. We got the maps to prove it. So it goes on to say here, right? Nor was this all. The king rested from their parents, all children between the ages of 3 to 10. Of those Jewish immigrants who from poverty or otherwise had omitted to pay the capitalization tax on entering, or who were forced to remain in Portugal. And then notice this here, and had them transported to the newly discovered island of Sao Tome or St. Thomas. This is dealing with the west coast of Africa, just south of the Gold Coast, which then swarmed with alligators and other beasts of prey to be brought up as Christians. So guess what? Forcing them into a religious system of Christianity. And there's a reason why you see alligators. You know, it says here, which then swarmed with alligators, took these young kids, took these children between the ages of 3 to 10 and sent them to this place that was very infested with alligators. I believe it's crocodiles, but they said alligators, you know, especially when we're dealing with that area, but threw them out there into the wolves. Doesn't it sound familiar? Our ancestors or our children being used as alligator bait? Come on, family. Nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. So when we go to American being the latest and most accurate description of the New World by John Ogilvy, let's see what he says. Let's see here. John Ogilvy, right? The Portuguese that dwelt on the island and formed the Netherlanders, that few lived about 50 years there. Notwithstanding the great gain tempted them to tarry, several of them having 200 or 300 Negroes that worked in the sugar mills, that John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was not left desolate, for he sent new inhabitants, who first settled in Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of what? There we have it again, St. Thomas, right? That so they might be the better of us to the air. Excuse me. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves, and we're not dealing with Caucasians, family. Let me make that clear. We are not dealing with Caucasians. We're dealing with Negroes. We are dealing with Negroes. But that said king, that the said king sold all those Jews for slaves, all those Israelites for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion. See, many of our ancestors didn't embrace that Roman Christianity, that Catholicism, or cause their children to be baptized. No, that many of them held out. They didn't, you know, this is when we're dealing with the Spanish Inquisition, and many of them were what? Sent away. They were sent to the island of St. Thomas and other places. We're dealing with dark melanated Israelites. All right. From whom, in other words, coming thither in great numbers, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Right. Then we go to the Critical Review or Annals of Literature, volume 57. Let's see what it says here. It says King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, wait a minute, come on now, family. See, now we're getting more of a specific description, more of a narrow description. Now we're seeing key words to make sure that what we're dealing with, we're not dealing with Caucasians. It says here, from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called, and the Jews of Loango, who are despised even by the very Negroes, are descended, right? It goes on to say, by these colonists, St. Thomas soon became a considerable place of trade and value for its sugar plantations. 30 years after their settlements, not less than 150,000 arobes, or 30 pounds of weight each, of sugar were exported in the engines of 60 sugar works, turned by slaves, just reading this here, just to make sure I read it correctly. These Negroes, notice that it's still talking about who? Negroes. These Negroes, these Israelites, were purchased in Guinea-Congo and Mani-Congo, and the colonists had plantations furnished with from 150 to 300,000 Negro slaves. Come on, family. They know that we're the people of the book. They know that we are the people of the book, right? Remember the white lion from Leave the world behind. All right. The white lion, this is referring to our people. So who are these Hebrews in Spanish speaking Ladino writing Negroes? Right. Let's go here. I don't have that presentation here to explain Ladino. All right. I'll do that another time. But let's go here. Let's go back to this source here, because we dealt with the Portuguese, we dealt with Spain, and we dealt with these territories. But we really need to deal with England, right? Remember, some were banished from Italy, Spain, Low Countries, from France, and from England in 1492. So are there any proof Negro Israelites were in Italy, were in France, were in England? Let's deal with the depiction of the Israelites in Amsterdam. We're going to deal with the territories that Shakespeare dwelt. So let's go to this book here. And family, this is a great source. It's a lot of information that you can pull out of this book. All right. This is Shakespeare and the Jews. All right. Let's go back here. The accumulated, and this is page 266, the accumulated experience over 800 years of travel, trade, and conquest had convinced Europeans that some of the accepted stereotypes of Jewish racial otherness, including the beliefs that Jews were blacks, needed to be qualified. When William Breton jotted down his impressions of the Jews, and remember, we kind of highlighted a source earlier. Let's go back here real quick. I believe that was this source right here. Right now, this is dealing with, as we highlighted here, it highlights, as you see, as we touched on this here, Earl Daniel, Daniel Earl. All right, so this is the source that we reference to that had his name here. All right, but we got other things that we're gonna pull up here. Let's go back here. All right, so William Breton jotted down his impressions of the Jews in the synagogue in Amsterdam. All right. In 1635. Now, peep this, family. Now, he's making a note of the, just for the sake of the conversation, the Jewish community, right? The name Jew during that time. He wrote down the names. Wrote down an account, a description of who they are, as you see with this source. And guess what we're going to see here? Guess what we're going to see here? So let's see who they describe here, right? It says he noted that the Jewish men are most black, right? Are most, not saying mostly black. He's saying they are absolutely black. That's what this means. And insatiably given unto women, drawing here on contemporary prejudices linking blackness and licentiousness, right? Licentiousness, excuse me, right? So now you see the stereotypes that all we want to do is, anyway, I'm not gonna get into the stereotypes, but these Negro Israelites at that time was being subjected to stereotypes. So it goes on to say, and when the Scottish minister Robert Kirk toured London in January 1690, so this is almost 60 years later, right? 55 years later, he also paid a visit to this same synagogue. And what did he say? He said there, where he observed over 200 Jews worshiping, he noted in his journal that they were all very black men and indistinct in their reasoning as gypsies. So we just proved it. Just thus far, we see that there were Negroes that was proven to be in Amsterdam, but we got some more work to do. We got some more work to do. Let me give a special shout out real quick. Want to say thank you for Kim Loves, for the love and support Kim Loves through my Savior, the Holy One of Israel. Thank you for the super chat, family. Let's show some love for Sister Kim. Thank you for the contributions tonight. Really appreciate you, sis. All right. Let's show some love, family. All right. So we just proved. But guess what? What's interesting here, this source goes on to talk about someone by the name of Francois Maximilian, because this person tried to say, hey, you know what? No, you cannot say all the Jews are black. That's what this is saying here. And this is what he says here. He says, is a vulgar error that the Jews are all black. So he's saying, no, you can't say all the Jews are black. Notice what this goes on to say, his premise. This mission observes is only true of the Portuguese Jews. Wait a minute. He's saying you can't say all the Jews are black, but guess what? We can say that only the Portuguese Jews are all black. Did y'all catch that, family? He's saying all the Portuguese Israelites are black, are Negroes. Notice what he goes on to say. The Portuguese Jews who marrying always among one another beget children like themselves. Consequently, the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race, even in the northern regions. So it's saying here, the swarthiness of their complexion. Y'all know what swarthiness means, and we'll touch on that. Saying that they were swarthy, said they all retained their complexion of being dark, melanated Negroes. Said the Portuguese Jews stayed within the community, right? But the Jews who are originally of Germany, right? Notice what they said, are originally of Germany. Those, for example, I have seen in Prague are not blacker than the rest of their countrymen. Wait a minute. So now you see that now we now we're starting to get an understanding that the German Jews, in other words, the Ashkenazi Jews, those that are dwelling in that territory, guess what? We know what their appearance is. We know that they were not aboriginal to, or should we say, indigenous to Northeast Africa, the ancient Israelites, right? Because we have proof right here. Here's a testimony. Here we go.
So, a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now immigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false.
Come on, Phil. You can't make it any plainer. You cannot make it any plainer. That's right. Appreciate it, my brother, Yason. Fair use. Fair use, fair use, fair use. And I'm going to make sure I say that. Got to make sure I do that when I'm playing certain videos, because as Yason made it clear, YouTube, guess what? They doing everything they can, right, to try to lock down what we're doing. Okay. So guess what? He makes it clear, right? About the Ashkenazis. All right. I don't even have to repeat what he said. Okay. So this is making it clear, right, that the Portuguese Jews per se said that they were black, swarthy. Okay. So let's go here, right? And I want to repeat this quote here. It's a lengthy quote, but the Portuguese Jews who marrying always among one another begat children like themselves. Consequently, the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race, even in the northern regions. Right? We just read that, but let's see what swarthy means. All right, let's go to the etymological dictionary of swarthy. You see dark color, especially skin. All right, so this is, as we see here, dark color, especially of skin. Now, of course, they modified it. They added another word here. What word did they add here? Tawny. So dark colored, tawny, especially in reference to skin. All right, so tawny is being used interchangeably with dark color. Why is that important? Because Shakespeare described Cleopatra as being what? Tawny. Okay. That's why this is so important. Shakespeare in his play describes Cleopatra as being tawny. In other words, being dark, melanated. So let's confirm this with the actual source. So this is coming from Travels in Holland, the United Provinces, England, Scotland, and Ireland. So we covering these territories by Brereton Williams, Sir Brereton Williams, or Sir William Brereton, Edward Hawkins. So let's go into this source. Let's confirm this. Let's see what it says. They're men, most black, full of hair, and insatiably given unto women, their wives restrained and made prisoners, their widows distinguished from all other women, Jews, by white veils hanging to their backs. They will not bury amongst the Gentiles. So guess what? Guess how they describe them? They're men most black. In other words, saying that they are black, absolutely black. Not saying mostly black. In this, because this is a 16th century writing. So when it says most black, they're saying in a nutshell, absolutely black. Right? So they're men most black, full of hair, and insatiably given unto women, their wives restrained and made prisoners, their widows distinguished from all other women by white veils hanging to their backs, right? So, and they will not even bury their dead among who? The other nations. That's what this is saying. But guess what, family? So we see that word swarthy. We see that they are being described as being dark, melanated Negroes like you and I. That's why you see that image on your screen right here. All right. Most dark, right? That's right. There is another group whose original complexion is described as swarthy, right? Let's deal with another one of these European territories that describes the original people there as being swarthy. Let's go to the source here. Journal of the Royal Institution of Cornwall, Footprints of Vanishing Race in Cornwall. Let's see what this source says. We're on page 280. It says, I believe the first human beings who entered Cornwall in the Neolithic period belonged to a race of dwarfs or pygmies and were veritable little people. The study of dwarf races is a new branch of anthropology, and it has wonderfully developed during the last 20 years. Ancient classical authors mention pygmies living in remote parts of Asia and Africa, and the conflicts of the latter, which the cranes are described in amusing language. These stories were for long thought to be childish inventions, but recent discoveries have proved that they were perfectly correct. When the Dutch occupied South Africa, they met with the dwarf Bushmen, who are the smallest pygmies in the world. The Spaniards also became acquainted with the Adas and Mamanaus, excuse me if I'm butchering the name, dwarf races of the Philippine Islands. And Europeans before long discovered the dwarf in the Andaman Islands, excuse me if I'm butchering it up again, who are known as many copies or min copies. In Africa, new dwarf tribes were constantly being found, such as the Sokos. Mr. R.G. Halliburton has traced these pygmies races into Morocco and Spain. Long ago, Jacob Grimm concluded from the traditions of elves, gnomes, trolls in Germany that dwarf races inhabited Central Europe in prehistoric times. So guess what? When we get those terms elves, when we get those terms gnomes, when we get those terms trolls, like those movies like The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbits, those are coming from an actual people. This right here gives you more clarity about St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is all about celebrating a genocide that the Roman Catholic Church committed on a specific group of people. So again, when I think about this portion of this input, where it says the tradition of elves, the tradition of gnomes, the tradition of trolls, guess what? Those stories come from a particular group of people. And it makes me think about what this rabbi said to this Christian. Here we go.
And you know what else, Jim? I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Come on, family. Did you hear that? He used the word orcs, right? Because all of that still come from a certain particular group of people. And guess what? We got to bring the chair out. All right. So you heard the words that he said, way out in left field. All right. But let's go to continue here. Fair use. That's right. Fair use. All right. Fair use. So from the traditions of elves, gnomes, trolls, right? The orcs, right? That's still dealing with these same types of these groups here. Current in Germany, that dwarf races inhabited Central Europe in prehistoric times. And Professor Nielsen has come to the same conclusion concerning Scandinavia, right? So let me give you another source here, right? And I want y'all to make sure y'all catch this. The dwarf races inhabited Central Europe in prehistoric times. Going back to the source, and we'll get to another source here. I would like to apply these conclusions to Cornwall. We have our legends of piskies, fairies, and little people. See, leprechauns, now we're starting to see the development of that word starting to take on other definitions, simply meant little people. As these stories are now understood in Europe to refer to a real race of prehistoric dwarfs. So I believe we may understand them with reference to Cornwall. I believe then that our piskies and fairies were genuinely Cornish dwarfs belonging to a real race of diminutive human beings. As to the fairies, they had a similar origin. They were not the dethroned gods of the heathen Celts, nor were they the spirit of unbaptized children or of druids who had rejected Christianity, right? So they're making it clear it's none of this. But they were originally dwarfs and pygmies, similar to the piskies, right? So again, it says our piskies, fairies, were genuine Cornish dwarfs belonging to a real race. Let's go back here. It goes on to say, right, and has shown that the pig houses of Scotland and fairy legends of the North may be traced to a race of prehistoric dwarfs that able Celtic scholar Professor Rice has lately in a valuable work set forth the view that a dwarf race inhabited Britain previously to the Celtic invasion, right? And these views have met with general acceptance. This also will explain the tradition existing from the French peasantry that the fairies were mortal, and the stories that long ago they were actually killed in Wales. Cornwall then was in the early days of the Neolithic inhabited by a race of pygmies like the Bushmen of Africa, in whom for convenience I shall call the Pisky dwarfs. So again, it says here, the diminutive flint arrowheads found all over Western Europe furnish another proof of the existence of these pygmies. All right. So we going in here, but let me give you another source here to prove that these original people were dark melanated people. So let's go to this book, Celtic Myth and Legend, Celtic Pride or Celtic Pride, page 20. Let's see what they say about the original people. These original people. Notice what it says. In physique, it was short, swarthy. Wait a minute. We see swarthy here. Dark-haired, dark-eyed, and long-skulled. Its language belonged to the class called Hamitic, the surviving types of which are found among the Galas, Abyssinian, Berbers. And see, this is Ethiopian when we get to the Galas, right? This Ethiopian territory. Abyssinians, Berbers, and other North African tribes. And each seems to have come originally from some part either of Eastern, Northern, or Central Africa, spreading thence. It was probably the first people to inhabit the Valley of the Nile, and it sent offshoots into Syria and Asia Minor. All right. So I just want to give you a little extra history here, going a little geek mode to give you some additional information to show the original people when we start dealing with St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, they murdered, they killed a group of people that that is referred to as the TWAS, TWAS or TWA, that was murdered. That they performed genocide on. Okay, but anyway, the depiction of Israelites in England. Let's continue here. Let's go back to the source here, right? Notice what it says here, right? Unlike though Manasseh assumes that the Portuguese Jews are white, raising predictable questions of what constitutes blackness, because this it's referring to a person named Manasseh trying to say that the Portuguese Jews are white. And it says raising predictable questions of what constitutes blackness, right? So this is giving you more information on this, where it says the Merchant of Venice provides another instance of this identification of Jews with blackness and naming Shylock's countrymen Tubal and Cus, the latter biblical name. But let's fast forward here. All right. So when we go further down here, where do I want to get to? The most rigorous English challenge to the position that the Jewish nation was biologically distinct appears in Thomas Brown's consideration of whether Jews stink naturally in his pseudodoxia. All right. It goes on to say here, let's see here, because guess what? They refer to us, having odor and all kinds of other things. We'll get into that when I show another source. So again, if they intermarried and mixed with other people, how could Paul predict in Romans about the future calling of the Jews ever be realized? This is a quote from this book, because he's saying that there was a distinction always made with the Israelites. That's what this quote is saying. They're saying Paul made a distinction between Israel and the non-blood descendants of Israel. That's what this source is saying. So although the Jews were a race, they were an exceptional one, insofar as they reputedly could never commingle with others. In other words, after all, if they intermarry and mix with other peoples, how could Paul prediction in Romans about the future calling the Jews ever be realized? Some writers pointed to the Jews dark or black. So it's making it clear. This is nothing new. They had this argument back then, but you see that the Israelites are being referred to as what? Dark melanated people. Some writers pointed to the Jews dark or black skin color as a marker of their racial differences. In addition, as members of a religious community from which the founders of the church had emerged, Jews were at once the opposite of Christians and at the same time potential Christians. From a Christian perspective, the only thing that stood in the way of their conversion, and we'll get to that in a second. So again, how did others during Shakespeare's time, and we'll get back to the source here, how did others during Shakespeare's time describe the Israelites? I'm glad you guys asked, right? Inside this book, there's a quote by Paul Isaiah, which is this is coming from 1655. In that quote, right, it says, "I knew you to be a Jew, for you have a peculiar odor of face different from the form of and figure of other men, which thing hath often filled me with admiration, for you are black and uncomely, and not white as other men." So we see he's transliterating a Hebrew text, and I'm going to get to that in a second here, right? But he's saying that the Israelites of that time are black people, dark melanated people. Now he's saying uncomely. Now, of course, they racist and they look at us a certain way, saying that the Israelites are black and ugly. When it says uncomely, because comely means beautiful. So he's saying uncomely, not beautiful, and not white as other men. So saying that, hey, they're black. They're not white. The Jews are not white people. That's what he's saying here. They're not attractive people. They're black and unattractive people. They are not white as other people. They are dark melanated people. Because again, during this time, that racial component by religion began to push the narrative of saying that the ancient Israelites were Caucasian people. All right, so let's go to another source to further explain what we just read here. Okay, this is from the Global Consequences of Mistranslations, Adoption of the Black Butt, Formulation in Europe, right? This is on page 547. And this is written between 1440 to 1650. So the KJV, the King James Version, is hailed as a landmark composition in the English language and was extraordinarily influential. Its effect on the language can be observed in a multitude of other texts. For example, the English translation of Song of Songs, in other words, Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5, resurfaces in an obviously relates but upside down form in the English translation by Paul Isaiah of Sebastian Munster's work. So this is Sebastian Munster's or whatever. He was a Jewish person who he wrote the Messiah of the Christian and Jews, right? Well, actually, this is as far as Paul Isaiah took the works of Sebastian and transliterated over to a work titled The Messiah of the Christians and the Jews in 1655. So it goes on to say a disputation of a Christian with an obstinate Jew. The Christian says, for you Jews have a peculiar color of face, different from the form and figure of other men, for you are black and uncomely and not white as other men. So it's making it clear that they are what? Black. They're not saying white people, right? In other words, they're saying they're dark melanated people. So Paul Isaiah actually translation of Sebastian Munster's Messiah Christianorum et Judaeorum. This is what he translated that from. And this is the actual source. This is Isaiah's source of the original writings. And I'm going to focus on this column right here, right? I'm going to focus on the left column, right? It says here, a disputation of Jews, right? It says, knowing what I say, God save you, O Jew, right? And this is referencing the Jews. And God save you. How know you me to be a Jew? That you speak so in Hebrew with me, art thou a Jew and one of you speak? Let me go back here. That you speak so in Hebrew with me, art thou a Jew, right? One of our people, right? But it goes on to say, Christians, I am not a Jew. Notice what it says, Christian, I am not a Jew, neither of thy people, neither am I acquainted with you, but from the form of your face, I knew you to be a Jew. For you Jews have a peculiar color of face, different from the form and figures of other men, which thing hath often filled me with admiration, for you are black and comely and not white as other men, right? So this is giving you proof that they know that these guys already know that the Israelites were dark melanated people. We're dealing with Christians. We're dealing with Jews at that time, as far as Ashkenazi Jews or converts or whatever you want to call it, proselytes, whatever you want to call it. But they know that the original people were dark melanated people. And they refer to them as ugly, as you see, for you are black and ugly, right? You are black and you are not beautiful. That's what they're saying here, and not white. So what they were trying to describe, like many of the races at that time when they dealing with Songs of Solomon 1 and 5, they're saying when his wife says I'm black and beautiful, right, dark and beautiful, they're saying that she's saying that as a form of deformity, right? So when they say again uncomely, right, they're saying ugly, right? When they say that, that's what he's trying to say, that the Jews, right, black, they are black and ugly, right? The Israelites are black and ugly. That's what this person Isaiah translating his work. All right, but anyway, let's go back to it. All right, let's go back to the source. Contemporary scholars have traced the origins of modern racism and nationalism back to the 16th century, a time where European nations were coming into contact on an unprecedented scale with other people, right? Not, when they say coming into contact, this is them invading other territories, not migrating or immigration. They were invading other territories, right? So it says here, indeed, they are quick to point that the words themselves, race as well as a nation, only began to acquire their current meanings at this time. Much of this research is flawed, however, by its secular bias. It has been remarkably slow to acknowledge the extent to which theology, in other words, religion, shaped the way people thought about both racial and national difference in early modern times. So this source is making it clear that it was religion that started injecting this racial component. You know, what we see today is all because of religion. This is why we see a white Christ. This is why we see in these religious institutions, they're fighting to try to prove that, according to them, that the Messiah is white, Caucasian, that the Israelites are Caucasians, and changing the appearance of all the other surrounding nations like the Egyptians, right? So it says again, to which theology shaped the way people thought about both racial and national difference in early modern times. As a result, this scholarship has necessarily ignored the place of the Jew in the formation of early modern European ideas about race and nation, despite the fact that so much theorizing about these topics in the 16th and the 17th centuries was produced in response to theoretical problems proposed by the Jews. All right. So again, for Shakespeare contemporaries, Jews were not identified by their religion alone, but by what? Nationality, by national and racial affiliation as well. All right. So Great Britain had a plan to manipulate Negro Israelites to adopt their doctrine, right? This is called the Naturalization Bill, repeal of the Naturalization Bill, right? Written in 1773, right? So this gets into it here. I'm not going to go too deep here, but it says here, I shall suppose that for strengthening our sugar colonies and for peopling them with subjects instead of slaves, a scheme were proposed for naturalizing all the black-born and any of them without any other conditions whatsoever. I will say that our adopting such a scheme would be ridiculous because of their progeny would always continue to be a distinct people. But if the conditions were added that no such blacks should be naturalized unless they declared themselves Christians, and that no such black man should be naturalized unless he married a white woman. Come on, this is the naturalization bill overseas, over in Britain. This is them trying to what? Cause us to to mix and mingle with them, so that way we lose our identity. That we will start when we, especially during that time, the threat of being enslaved. They say, okay, we'll allow them to become citizens, so they will protect whose heritage, not their original Israelite heritage, protecting the heritage of these very nations that have forced them into slavery. So that's what they're saying here. That's right. They were trolling back then, Yaquaba. So they were using the naturalization laws. That's right, Macman, to basically, in a nutshell, use it as a way to Hellenize the Israelites, the true Israelites. So as you see here, all right, let's go back here, right? It says here again, if the conditions were added that no such blacks should be naturalized unless they declared themselves Christians, right? So they couldn't practice their culture. And that no such black man, excuse me, let me clear my throat. And it goes on to say, and no such black man should be naturalized unless he married a white woman, nor any black woman unless she married a white man. So making the men marry the Negro Israelites, marry white women, and make Negro Israelite women, that was referred to negresses, marry black men. So they could not become naturalized or become citizens unless they married of the opposite race. And why? Notice what it says here. The ridicule of the scheme would be very much softened because their progeny would in time unite and coalesce with the rest of the people. It might a little alter the complexion of the people of these islands. So they purposely was trying to get us to mix and mingle with other nations, so that way it what dilutes us to make us what lighter, to make us more acceptable. Come on, family. This is still happening right now. This is why we see all the commercials. Have you guys noticed on the commercials right now, not just in this country, the push for our people to mix and mingle with other nations? Have you guys noticed that? Have you guys noticed that? So this is why we see so many within our community, right, that succeed, that do well for themselves. Who do they marry? Whether it's a brother, man, or a sister, who do they marry? Who did they marry? See, that was programmed into our ancestors. See, that this is a calculated agenda here. All right. So it says it might a little alter the complexion of the people of these islands, but they would all become the same people and would look upon themselves and no other light than as subjects of Great Britain. This must show the impudence and even the ridiculousness of our adopting the doctrine that all Jews born here are to be deemed natural born subjects for their latest posterity while they continue Jews. All right. So family, we see it right here. The same people, right? And will look upon themselves and no other light as subjects of Great Britain. So make them citizens, even though they still be enslaved. Make them citizens, even though they'll be indentured servants, some of them. Make them citizens, even though they're working on these sugar plantations. So that way they will hold on to an identity that's not even theirs. That dirty dime for a shiny nickel. Come on, family. You can't make this stuff up, right? So are there any additional documents that further prove how white Jews treated the original Israelites? Guess what, family? This is one more source here. I'm going to show you here. In the memoirs of Jewish founder of the state of Georgia. That's right. In the memoirs of James Oglethorpe. Notice what you see here. Next day, Oglethorpe divided the men and boys into parties. This is Savannah, Georgia. One to cut forks, poles, lathes, for making more bowers, another to set them up, a third to fetch palmetto leaves, a fourth to thatch, and a Jew workman bred in the Brazils who had come from Savannah. Wait a minute. Breed, when you start dealing with breeding, this tells you this is not a Caucasian Israelite. This is a Negro Israelite who is enslaved and who is bred, because that's what they were doing with our people. They were breeding our people like animals. So this is telling you right here. This is telling you right here that this Jew right here inside his memoir, he is a dark melanated Negro who was bred, right? Who was enslaved and bred, as it says here. Just like when we deal with the United States, right? The breeding seed, because, many of the slaves are, as far as our ancestors, came from how they were breeding, how they were doing all this, breeding us just like we were animals. This is where you start getting into the Willie Lynch. Come on, family. Come on, family. So family, this is right across the board, family. They've been doing this playbook has been in full effect. Full effect. All right. So I think that's his last slide here. I think we went through it pretty quick. Yep, that's his last slide. I made sure that it wasn't long, or I tried to keep it kind of short here, being that it is Saturday night, right? And I know it's been a long day for many of us. I'm gonna drop the link real quick, Sister Carol, if you want to jump on. I thought I saw Jay Highstar. I'll just open up the floor for if anyone want to jump on for a few minutes. If you guys have any comments or questions, or just you want to just share, kind of like some thoughts about the lesson tonight. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the link here. All right, let me fix here. All right. You had to loosen up unzip the collar because it was getting kind of heated up in here. In other words, my office, because I got my door closed off. And so, yeah. So I know I shared a lot of information, family. I know I shared a lot of information. All right. I'll give it another minute or so for anyone that wants to jump on. If not, we'll just resume next week. We had a couple of video clips. I'm gonna try to upload a video clip tomorrow. So in between doing these lives, I try to make it a point to upload do at least 2 or 3 uploads during the week. So we have some additional uploads that we're going to do. Got some historical information that I want to upload as well. So family, with that being said, right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight. Appreciate you guys for the love and support, and again for the contribution from our sister Kim Loves through My Savior. All right, really appreciate the love and support tonight. And family, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to give the final thoughts. The final thoughts come from Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. And this is the words of Yahweh and what he said to Moses to give to the people, because they had their first major challenge coming out of Egypt. He said to them, "Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you." But here's the kicker, family. We have to hold our peace. Can't go back. Can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was the... Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel.
Somebody better call the doctor.